Hi guys. So you're real, you're not like behind a piece of glass or on a screen. It's kind of new. And before I start, I was just talking to Natalie, and she was telling me about binge watching, and I want to say, don't binge watch. It's bad for you. No, I'm just kidding. But I really feel like binge watching has gotten a little out of control. It's great if you're going back to watch an old show, but if you are watching a show in real time, you get to share it with other people. It's a communal experience. You get to think about the episodes for a week or so in between them. I like that. But anyway, I'm the TV critic at the Boston Globe. I've been doing this there for 17 years. So probably when you guys were, just being born. It's a great job. Marie, I'm sorry. I spend my whole day sitting on the couch in my jammies, watching TV, eating snacks, and then I spend a whole night in front of my computer stressing and pulling my hair out and trying to write reviews. But it's a great job, I have to say. I really lucked out, and I love it. I feel like, what is the purpose of a TV critic? Especially at this point in time where, everybody can be a TV critic. I mean, there are so many people who have just websites and they just, are writing recaps of episodes, and I feel like, I still feel like it's a really important job for a couple of reasons. First of all, TV is a drug. I mean, it's so seductive. It's easy to spend your days just getting sucked in by whatever is on. So I feel like as a TV critic, what I can do that's really valuable for people is help them separate the wheat from the chaff. I can point them toward good shows. I can watch as much as possible, since it's my job and I'm getting paid for it, and then kind of deliver to them the 5 or 6 really extraordinary shows like Breaking Bad or The Sopranos or 6 Feet Under or The Shield or The Americans or whatever you're into. And I do want to hear about that after I finish blabbing on. So that's, to me, a very satisfying part of my job. There's a show called Friday Night Lights that, I just couldn't believe. I thought it was great. Nobody was watching it. I mean, it was on NBC. Every month, all of the Hollywood reporters were writing about how it was going to be canceled. The numbers were so low. NBC kept moving it around, trying to find an audience for it, and it just wasn't happening. And I saw that as a great opportunity for me to really scream in the Globe to readers, watch this show, I know you'll like it, please just try it. And it was so satisfying to do that, and I just, every week I would hammer it in the paper. I have this daily column called Critics Corner, and even though it takes me half an hour to write and it's really short, it gets a huge readership. And every week I would just yell about Friday Night Lights, and people just were constantly emailing me and saying, thank you so much for turning me on to that show. I love it. So I don't know if any of you saw that show, but it's great. I mean, it's just a beautiful show, right? So that's something I really enjoy doing. Especially now because there are so many outlets for TV. I don't even want to say channels because Netflix isn't a channel, Hulu isn't really a channel. There's just TV coming at you from a million different directions, and so it's really important to have people as gatekeepers telling you, pointing you in the right direction. I mean, because TV is such a drug, look, we all want to sit down and escape and just let our minds go into outer space and watch whatever's on and whatever, just zone out. But you know, for the most part, when you sit down, I mean, why not watch something that's good? And why not, you know, get a couple of good shows queued up on your DVR and, you know, watch those, or go to iTunes or on demand and choose what you want to watch. Be mindful about what you're going to watch instead of just letting it come at you. So I feel like, you know, in my role as critic, that's something I really enjoy, is pointing people toward the good stuff and, of course, away from the lousy stuff. And there is a lot of lousy stuff. That's the closest I'll ever get to singing. You know, I mean, like I said, we all want to just kind of sit back and, you know, every once in a while just kind of whatever's on, watch really stupid things, it's fine. But for the most part, I mean, how great to have, you know, this ability now to choose what you want to watch, to be able to find a break, you know, have somebody say, watch Breaking Bad, it's amazing. I mean, I don't know if any of you watched that show, and if you didn't, you probably should. And in that case, because it's already aired, you can binge it. It's an amazing show. I mean, every episode is like a little movie. I mean, it's so great. So, you know, to sort of have the power to sit down and watch what you choose to watch instead of what is being served up. I mean, when I was a kid, which was forever ago, you know, there were like 4 major channels, and there were no recording devices. You just watched what was on, and you know, you just go from I Dream of Jeannie to Bewitched to, you know, you had 4 or 5 choices, and that was it. So it's great to be in a time where you have a million choices, and you can do it on your own terms. So that's one reason, is to, you know, help people pick what to watch. But also, what I really like doing as a TV critic is kind of trying to open up a show for the reader, trying to like analyze it a little bit, you know, write about it in a way that is not passive. You know, I mean, you know, it's really fun for me to like watch a really high quality show and analyze the characters and talk about them as if they're real people, and you know, share those views with readers, and so I really enjoy doing that. And you know, I was thinking, you know, think about what your favorite show is, or what you think is a good show, and then think about what the lead line, if you were going to write a review, would be. You know, think about what you would say in that review. I mean, it's a great way to watch TV, to kind of think about what you're watching. And you can do that with bad TV, you know. This is so bad, but, you know, why is our culture into this horrible show, The Bachelor, you know? Why is, you know, Juan Pablo, or whatever his name is, why is that, you know, compelling to people, you know? So even bad shows can be interesting if you take an analytical approach to them. And that's something that I really like to do, is just sit down and write about a show and try to open it up a little bit for readers, and, you know, share my wisdom, because there's so much of it. You know, it's valuable to say thumbs up or thumbs down, but, you know, I mean, I'm getting paid to do a lot more, and I think readers want more, and so, you know, that is fun for me. Let's see. And I, you know, obviously it's important to have a good education. That's why you're all here. But when I was trying to think, you know, what is a quality that you need to have if you want to write about TV or whatever, really, you know, whatever your passion is, you know, if you want to write about sports, or if you want to write about, you know, video games or food. The quality I think you need is, you know, I mean, you need to know how to write, but you also need to know how to observe. You know, you need to, I think the best critics are critics who, yes, they're able to reference old shows, they're able to give a show context and talk about what it means to our culture, but what really makes them work, sentence by sentence, is their ability really, that they paid attention and they watched really closely, and they have this ability to observe. You know, I always love reading someone who's seen something open-mindedly and really looked at it closely. You know, who are reviews for? Well, you know, when I sit down to write, it's very hard work. You know, I don't want to romanticize it, but I also, I mean, I'm aware that it's a great job, but also I don't want to like make it seem like it's, you know, la la la, like Marie was saying. I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely hard work. And when I sit down to write, I want to entertain myself. You know, I want to write a review that kind of turns me on, like makes me laugh and makes me think. And you know, while I'm writing it, I want to think. And so when I write a review, I'm really writing it for myself in a funny way. Because I think when you write something that keeps your interest, then it will keep the reader's interest as well. You know, sometimes I read stories and I think, boy, the writer just seems so bored with this. You know, like, why would I want to read this when the writer was so boring? You know, so bored and boring. You know, and you want to feel like the person who's writing the story, and no matter what it's about, is kind of discovering the subject and a little excited about it, and excited about the words they're choosing, and excited about the jokes they're making or the insights they're sharing. So I think, you know, for me, when I sit down, I'm definitely writing to myself in a funny way. You know, I enjoy crafting a piece. I enjoy coming up with the lead that's going to grab somebody, and then coming up with the kicker at the end that's going to leave them maybe laughing too, or thinking or something. And I find kickers really hard. I find it really hard to write a good ending for a story. But that said, I do want to say that I think the reason I do it when I sit down is because I want to reach the reader, you know, like I was saying. I mean, it's really important to me to be aware that someone is going to read this and I don't want them to be bored. I want to entertain myself, but I really want to entertain the person who's reading it. You know, I try to write a dynamic lead. I try to make it fun, you know, but also maybe poetic, if that seems right, or, you know, just kind of sentence by sentence. Keep each sentence interesting if I can. And because I know that somebody else is going to read it. And, you know, in my position at the Globe, as all journalists will tell you, readers respond. And well, you guys know this because you go online a lot probably, and you know, you can see the comments that people get. I mean, so, you know, that's so satisfying to me, to know that people are reading it, and maybe they hated it, maybe they loved it, but at least they read it. And, you know, a lot of times they hate it, and it's not some troll, you know, it's some like smart person who busts you on some contradiction that you made, or, you know, accuses you of something that might be a little bit correct. And, you know, I've developed a really hard skin over the years, you know, which has been great. I feel very resilient. You can say whatever you want to me. So that's let's see. I'm trying to think of what else I can say. The other thing about what I do, and I think all entertainment journalists and all journalists in general have to think about this. You really have to try to stay immune to the hype. I mean, you guys are getting hyped out the wazoo. And I don't know how much you know this, because, you know, I don't have kids, I'm not a teacher, but I hope you realize that you're seeing ads that you're not even realizing are ads, and all of these celebrity interviews that you're getting fed are all in service of promoting a movie or a TV show or a product that you're going to pay for. And so as a journalist, you really have to be vigilant about that. You really have to kind of steel yourself and cultivate a kind of sense of immunity from all of those influences. I mean, I get gifts from the networks. I mean, and some of them are really fabulous. You know, I mean, I'm just saying. But like, you know, I can't keep them. I either have to give them away or send them back. And what's been really interesting for me is, before I was a TV critic, my primary job at the Globe was as a celebrity profiler. So, profiler, that doesn't sound good. Celebrity interviewer. And so I spent a lot of my time in New York and LA in rooms with people who are amazing. You know, whenever a studio was releasing a movie, they would gather journalists in a hotel room, in a ballroom that looked like this, and they would seat us at 6 different tables, 10 to a table, and bring in 6 people from the movie. And those people, you know, Meryl Streep at one table, John Travolta at another table, you know, Martin Scorsese, you know, all the people, important people in the movie would sit at a table for a half hour and then switch. And then if you were a bigger paper like the Globe, later on you might get an hour or something alone with one of these people. So it's a factory, and you know, the studio is bombarding journalists with all of these amazing people. And, you know, I mean, imagine. I mean, I sat in a room with Meryl Streep for an hour, and it was freaking awesome, you know, and not disappointing. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio, Johnny Depp. Who else? A million of them. I mean, almost you name it, and I was there. You know, but those people speak to 1,000 of me a year, so you know, it's really nothing special. But in the process, it's so easy to become biased. You know, I just spent an hour with Meryl Streep, and she was delightful. So I love that movie so much, you know, like that. I mean, that's what happens to you, and they count on that. You know, you know, that's why this whole sort of celebrity infotainment industry is so huge, because it's being used to promote indirectly, but also quite effectively. So, you know, I understand from my experience going into these ballrooms and into these hotel rooms with these famous people that it's easy to become swayed. And I just think, you know, if any of you want to be writers, obviously if you're going into PR, you know, study that stuff, because, you know, that's how it's going to work for you, if you're a publicist. But as a journalist, or as a writer who wants some integrity and independence, you really have to steel yourself against all of the promotional efforts that are coming at you, and really try to see a movie or a TV show or a book or you know, anything for what it is, just as a story. I mean, I love a good story. I love television. It tells a story over time. You know, it's every week you're kind of living with this story, and it's great, you know, and a good story is nothing like it. So, you know, that's my holy grail. You know, I want to find that. I don't want to be swayed by the fact that I happen to like one of the actors, or one of the actors smiled at me. One of my friends, who's no longer at the Globe, one of my dear friends, she was always, this was years and years ago, we were always like, oh, I hate Gwyneth Paltrow. She's horrible. This was long before everybody hated her. I mean, we were on the cutting edge of hating Gwyneth Paltrow. And so this was literally like 15 years ago, and then my friend went to one of these events given by a studio. They're called junkets. She went to a junket, and it happened to be for Gwyneth Paltrow movie. And so she met Gwyneth at the round table that I described, where there were groups of journalists. And then later, she had a one-on-one with Gwyneth up in a hotel room, and she went up to the hotel room, and Gwyneth said, "Oh, hi, blah, blah," because she remembered my friend's name, and that was it. My friend came back, she's like, oh, she's great. You're way too harsh on her. She was converted in a second, and that's what happens, you know. And look, that's fine, but you know, that often bleeds into your judgment of a TV show or a movie. And so, you know, I feel like that's a really important thing to me, and I think that's what keeps newspapers above and beyond a lot of the websites and bloggers that are out there. They're great. I mean, I love reading a good blog entry about a show where they tear it apart creatively. It's wonderful. Or where they praise it and celebrate it. But they're not exactly impartial. You know, often, not always, but often the people behind those blogs are getting free stuff. They know they can't be too hard on something because they might lose access. So, you know, it's a tricky game, but I feel like that's one thing that newspapers have to offer at this point, is that kind of impartiality, integrity. Anyway, so that's enough of my blah, blah, blah. I'd love to hear your questions and hear what you like to watch, what you don't like to watch, why you like what you like. So please. Oh, I think Maria, are you gonna?
Well, we actually have 2 students on this side of the auditorium with microphones, so just raise your hand and we'll make it over to you.
I'd much rather hear your voices than mine.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm a huge House of Cards fan.
Yes.
So I'm wondering kind of how you get certain shows that you going out there. Like, I love a Friday Night Lights, or like, is NBC coming to you? Like, we need some more of this, or is it a boss? It's like, these shows are hot. I was just wondering how you choose or don't choose what you're about.
I choose what to review based on a couple of things. Partly, it's what's premiering. You know, when Friday Night Lights premiered, I reviewed it just because, you know, I want to sort of, you know, give readers a sense of whether, you know, they should tune in based on what I've seen. But then later on, I might go back to a show because it's so good, you know, and I just want to reinforce that. Or I might have given a show a great review, and then like 2 months later, because TV is such a fluid, stretched out medium, you know, if I love something when it premiered because I saw 2 episodes and then it got awful, which happens a lot, then I go back and I say, guess what, people, you know, I liked it before, but now, you know, don't bother. So I can pretty much, I have the freedom at the Globe, but I don't, you know, if a network is pushing me to write about something, I just ignore it. You know, I do it based on my own tastes. If something has become remarkably popular that I don't particularly like, I might write about it just because of that and say, you know, isn't this interesting? Everybody's fascinated by Survivor. I mean, I remember when Survivor premiered. Survivor was like the first big reality show back when you were 2, and it was, I mean, people had never seen that before. I mean, I remember hearing that they were going to put people on an island with cameras, and it was like beyond belief. And I actually liked the first season a lot. I liked a little, you know, a couple seasons, but I had to write about it anyway, just as a phenomenon. So, you know, that sometimes is reason enough, not because it's good or bad, but just because people are interested, because it says something about who we are as a culture. Anyone else?
My name's Ashlyn, and my question is, well, I think it's great that we can pretty much watch whatever we want when we want. I'm not really big on watching TV in general, but because we can watch what we want, when we want, pretty much wherever we want it, don't you think we've become a little bit isolated, and don't you think you're kind of a part of that because you tell us what to watch and what to stay away from?
Interesting. Next question. Wait, I'm not sure I understand. So you're asking if I'm removed from sort of the real
Yes.
world of viewers?
And if you're causing or an influence of people being removed from general messages, and pretty much telling us what to watch and what messages to receive and what messages to not receive.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
You're telling us to watch Breaking Bad. I haven't watched Breaking Bad.
Right. Right. Yeah. So you mean I'm shaping what? Well. So you mean I'm shaping what the culture is about? Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's definitely. I feel like, you know. I mean, I don't want to overstate the power of a TV critic. It's pretty minimal. I mean, when you think about a theater critic, those guys have power. I mean, Don O'Coin is a Globe theater critic, is a friend of mine, and I always say, I don't know how you do that. I could never do that. Because they can make or break a show. I mean, you know, what I have to say about, you know, American Idol is not really going to affect whether or not people tune in that much. It usually works the other way. If I like something that's not being watched, maybe I can get some more viewers to it. But, smarty pants.
Matthew, you mentioned earlier that readers will write in and say, thanks for, you know, turning me on to that. And I wonder, conversely, do you hear from producers and directors on shows that you can and you're not so happy about what you've written?
It's funny, occasionally, I think most producers are smart enough not to do that. Because they know if I don't like this show, I might like their next show. So they don't want to, you know, get on, create any kind of tension. Sometimes it happens. I wrote about, there was a very short-lived, although maybe it's coming back, ABC Family reality show set on Martha's Vineyard. Did you see it? Oh, you watched it all, didn't you?
Like one episode.
One episode.
Just one.
One season. So you know, and I totally ridiculed the show. I just thought, I mean, you know, like I said, I was writing this review. I had to entertain myself. I had to entertain the reader, and that was what I did. I just kind of ridiculed it. And I did hear from the producer who was really angry, and, you know, that's okay. You can be angry. More often, you know, I've heard from J.J. Abrams a few times, which is really cool, and, you know, gotten actual letters that I would like to frame, but probably won't. But, you know, so that's always nice when you hear from a producer because you like something. But at the same time, it's, like I was saying, you still can't be swayed. I mean, for instance, I heard from J.J. Abrams twice, and they were both of those letters were about pieces I'd written in praise of Lost. Because for the first 4 seasons or so, I just thought it was an amazing television experience, event, series, whatever it was, puzzle. I mean, it was awesome. And then, you know, by the end, I really thought that it just got kind of awful. And, you know, there was a point where I had to say, well, I guess JJ's not going to be writing to me this time. You know, I guess I'm going to be on his boot list. And so, you know, that's what I had to say. But that's where you can get seduced by that. So, anyway.
Jonathan, so with House of Cards, right here, with like House of Cards, the new season of Arrested Development, what else? Orange is the New Black. Do you see Netflix making a lot more shows? And then, like, to follow that up, do you think it's good or bad that they release the entire season at once? Because you said binge watching isn't recommended.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I'm on like a little mission against binge watching for new shows.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, like, what's going on in terms of Netflix. It's really breaking new ground, and nobody knows where it's going to go. I mean, is that the future of TV? I don't know. We are so in between models. You know, there's like 10 models out there right now. I have no idea what direction it's going to go in. It may be that everything ends up being on demand, you know, or not. I don't know. The thing that I don't like about the Netflix approach is, like I said, I feel like it's hard to share a community a sense of community with other viewers. It's like, okay, I've seen House of Cards, but I don't know where other people are in the progress of that show. You know, we're not all on the same page. You know, it was just kind of dumped on us. So it's sort of weird. It just, I feel like it comes between people, and it makes it hard for them to talk about it and anticipate the next episode and theorize about what might happen. I mean, to me, that's part of the thrill of the medium of television is the, you know, you can see a movie, you see it once, it's over, and that's great. TV just goes on, and that's one of the charms of it for me. So I like sharing that. I feel like that makes it's distinctive about TV. So, yeah.
Hey. All right. Well, I'm Chris, and you talk about how, as a reviewer, just giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down isn't enough. Do you think that being too analytical can also be a bad thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I mean, it's a fine line. That's a great question, because I have been known to make fun of people who get too analytical about shows that don't quite deserve it. For instance, when New Girl, you know, there's a lot of critics out there now, and writing about TV is a really big thing now. It wasn't always, but because TV has become so good, and so, I mean, in some ways better than movies, you know, when you take into account some of the HBO and Showtime and AMC and FX, Netflix stuff, and even some Netflix stuff. It's so good that there are a lot of people analyzing it and writing about it. And every once in a while, a show like New Girl comes along, and there are people out there writing about New Girl as if it's Breaking Bad, you know, as if everything that's on the screen is important, and, you know, what is Jess thinking about now, and, you know, why did Schmidt do that? And, you know, I've been known to say, guys, really, you know, save your skills for something a little bit more interesting. So, you know, not that I don't like, well, it gets on my nerves now, but, you know, there are nice things to be said about New Girl, but it's not, you know, like the great TV shows like Sopranos, which really, you know, are just written so beautifully that you can treat them as if they were, you know, novels or texts, or, you know, movies, or not texts as in Texas. So, hey.
Yeah, okay. I'm back here. I was just wondering what your favorite TV show of all time would be. If you had to pick.
Yeah, that's a really hard question. I mean, I've given different answers to that question on different days. I mean, it usually is like a contest between The Sopranos, The Wire, and Breaking Bad for me. And I think most consistently, I feel like The Sopranos is the best. I mean, it's just, you know, I've been rewatching it ever since James Gandolfini died, and it bears up. You know, it's so well acted, so well written, funny, but also psychologically rich. I love that show. I mean, also, it has historical importance because it was the show that kind of brought people over to the cable universe. You know, there was a time when HBO existed, but people really didn't kind of, you know, mainstream people didn't really know how to get there and didn't know what it was, and there's too many channels, and what do you do? You know, and when The Sopranos hit, people found HBO and they found cable, and from that point on, it was, you know, that was only in 1999 that it premiered, so, you know, that was 15 years ago. So it hasn't, you know, but that really changed the landscape. So it has that going for it too. Without The Sopranos, there wouldn't be Breaking Bad or, you know, The Wire. But I usually go with The Sopranos. But, you know, there are older shows that I'm sure most of you guys haven't seen and maybe don't know about, like The Twilight Zone, which is just an awesome, great show. If you go and watch it, it's black and white and it's slow. I mean, half an hour feels like it takes forever, but they're so cool. You know, without The Twilight Zone, there wouldn't be Lost, there wouldn't be any of the paranormal shows, you know, I mean, there's a million shows that I can name that probably wouldn't exist without the Twilight Zone. So part of me wants to go with that, but really I have to say, you know, for pure enjoyment, The Sopranos. So, how's that for
to your right. Hi, I'm Christina. I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about what positions you held before you became a TV critic. Like, how did you work your way up? Did you always work at the Globe? Where did you work?
No. I started, well, I did go to law school, and it was a disaster. It was so ridiculous. And so this thing called moot court comes up like at the end of your first semester, which is when you have to present a case like in front of people. And it was like, there's no faking it at that point. I just said, I'm out. You know, it was a great mistake because I knew this is not for me. This world is not for me. And it kind of, you know, it's okay to make mistakes. So from that point, I went and I did volunteer work at a place called the Boston Review, which is a bi-monthly arts publication. It's quite different now from what it was then. And I worked there for a few years and went from working for free and reading manuscripts that came in the mail unsolicited to actually getting paid very little, but getting paid to work there. And then from that, I worked at a place called New Age Journal for a little while. And then I went to the Globe. I was really, really lucky. It was in the late 80s. And a friend of mine, Gail Caldwell, was working at the Globe, and there was a part-time, temporary opening on a copy desk, copy editing, and she said, you know, come and interview for this, so I did, I got it. And then I just kind of managed to stay in the building. I started writing for book reviews, and I just started, you know, so, and then at the Globe, I started as a copy editor, which is an incredibly valuable part of journalism, where, you know, all of your copy, everything you write gets corrected and questioned, and copy editors protect you with, unless they don't like you, they protect you from sounding really stupid sometimes. I mean, I think of the mistakes I would have made in print if it had not been for the copy desk. But anyway, so I worked at the copy desk for a year, and then I started writing about books, because the book writer was on leave for a year, so I did that. And then he came back, and that was when I went and became a celebrity profile person. And I did that until '97, and that was when I became a TV critic. The TV critic left, the former TV critic, and there was this opening, and I was like, oh, I'll do it. And it was a great, I really have loved it. And 17 years in, I still feel passionate about it. Hey.
I mean, I can just talk loudly.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's hard for me to
I'll go
say.
next.
I can go first.
No, you go.
You go.
Okay. Oh, hi, I'm Cassidy, and I was just wondering what your thoughts on The Walking Dead were, because as you were talking about how television is better as like a sharing experience, they're actually one of like the only shows right now that has like Talking Dead afterwards, which is like a talk show about the show. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were about that show.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think this kind of after-show phenomenon, which started with The Walking Dead, but they're now doing, they did it with Breaking Bad for a while. There's another show that they're doing. Which one?
Bates Motel with Vera Farmiga.
Oh, right, Bates Motel. And I think part of the philosophy, or part of the commercial motivation for doing that is to get people to watch it when it airs. Because when people watch something while it's airing, they're seeing the ads for the most part. Or at least the ratings are going up for that particular show, which means the network, or in AMC, can charge more money for ads. So that's part of why they do that. It's fascinating. And also just to cultivate the culture around a show and create the kind of community that I was talking about. I am not a big fan of The Walking Dead. You didn't think I was, did you? I liked it at first, and then I just got kind of burnt out on it, and I didn't really like the characters, but it's a huge, there's a case, like I was talking, where I'm not really into it, but it's such a big phenomenon that every once in a while I go back and I write about it, I make sure that I you know, acknowledge that there are a lot of people out there. Huge, I mean, I think they get 10, 12 million for an episode, which for AMC on cable is like massive. That's bigger than anything NBC does. I mean, that's huge. So, you know, a lot of people are passionate about that show. It's very like kitschy and kind of, you know, like a grade B horror movie. But, you know, I respect the people who watch it and like it. I like you. You're okay.
Hi. Over here.
Okay.
I just have a quick question about the way that episodes kind of conclude and what you think about that. So there are a couple shows that kind of got canceled in the middle of their like a following being created, and then were picked back up. And also there's lots of, I feel like, a lot of talk about the way shows that have been going through seasons and seasons, the way that they ended oftentimes is really seems disappointing. And I'm just wondering what you think, what it is about the shows that have been picked back up to be finished after years and years of them being over, or not over, but canceled. What it is about those shows that causes that to happen, the popularity of that, and maybe one generation passing on to the next generation.
Right. Are you thinking of a show?
Yeah, like Arrested Development or Veronica Mars. I know it's coming out with a movie.
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, there's the ratings issue, which often ends a show. But even when a show ends that's doing well, you know, they decide to end, like How I Met Your Mother or something, which is or Seinfeld, which, you know, they're on for a long run and they decide to end. Even then, it's hard to end a show. I mean, TV writers are so bred to like go on and on. It's about continuing the story. So they really don't know how to do endings very well. I mean, that's one thing that I've seen over and over again. I mean, I can count the number of really satisfying series finales on 1.5 hands, you know. 6 Feet Under being the best. But that's different from what you're talking about, which is, you know, I'm not a big fan of going back to a show. I'm really not. I was talking with Natalie earlier. She binge watched Freaks and Geeks, and you know, which is 1 season. And I mean, I just love that. And you know what? It ended. Much as I'm sorry that show ended, I do not want it to go back to it. Man. You know, let it be a 1-season wonder. Let it exist as this little gem. Why do we have to have more and more? There's plenty of, you know. So I'm very cynical about that. I did not like the fact that they brought back Arrested Development. I thought that was a mistake. You know, let us have the 3 seasons, perfect seasons. Let that be. You know, I hate the fact that they brought back Sex and the City as a movie. You know, I liked the series. You know, I thought it was really good. And then the first movie, whatever. You know, why they didn't have to do it. And the second movie was just a disaster. It was horrible, and it taints the legacy of that particular story. You know, so I'm not a big fan of going back, even if it's a show that I loved. There's a show called The Comeback that Lisa Kudrow made for HBO, which lasted 1 season. And I was so sad when it ended, but another 1-season wonder. It's okay. Hey.
Hi, I have a microphone now. So last year, Nielsen announced that they were going to start using Twitter to monitor hashtags during shows, and that was going to factor into their ratings. And I've noticed that almost every show these days has a hashtag in the corner, so that while you're watching, you'll tweet or use social media. Do you think that the Twitter universe is going to affect the target demographic in shows coming up? And do you personally use social media to talk about your writing?
That's a great question. It's really interesting what's happening. I mean, I think it's bogus, and a lot of other writers do too, because, you know, I mean, a lot of people are watching shows but not tweeting. And they're not necessarily older people. I know young people who are in the target demo that every network and channel wants that aren't tweeting while they watch. So I think that's a misleading kind of number. You know, certain kinds of shows engender tweetability, you know. I mean, last night I noticed a lot of people were tweeting the Bachelor finale. You know? I mean, yeah, it's fun. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, if you're not like commenting on it and doing pop-up ridicule, what's the point, really, in a way? You know, not what's the point, but it's more fun. But then there are shows that people don't tweet, so I think that's a misleading guide. I think it's it's nice for a show to have this culture around it, and they all want it to happen. But I don't think that actually has any numerical or import. I do tweet occasionally, live tweet. Like I live tweeted the Oscars. I've done different event episodes of shows. I think it's fun and pick up a few followers, which is always fun.
So I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Speak now.
Hi. I was just wondering, what makes a good show to you? Like, how do you decide that something has potential?
It's a great question. I mean, and like the networks usually only send 1 episode of a new show, whereas HBO, which usually has more confidence about their products, will send 5 episodes. And I feel like that's sort of what I'm judging from. So that's always tricky. But anyway, it's really hard to actually name what makes a good show. If I could, then, or if anyone could, then I think there would be more of them probably. I mean, there's a sort of, there are like 10 things that need to be in place and working together. There needs to be a good script. TV is really a writer's medium, more so than movies. A script in a movie is important, but a movie is really about what the director wants to say, how he or she is framing things, what kind of performances he or she is coaxing from the actors, what he or she is cutting out of the script. TV really belongs to writers in a big way. So I'm looking for a good script, that doesn't have cliches, doesn't have, painful logical gaps. It shocks me when I'm watching TV and I think, well, what about the guy who just did that? They just forget about him, So the script is important. I like rich performances. Again, The Sopranos to me, E. Falco, that whole cast was just awesome. They were emotionally, they had emotional power, but then they could also be funny. I just need a good story. I need an unusual story. I mean, it doesn't have to be unusual, that's fine. I mean, it can be the same old story. I mean, Friday Night Lights to me was just about family and community. That's the oldest story in the book, but it was done so well. The acting was so on. The script is so good. I like Breaking Bad. Was filmed so beautifully. Like if you ever watch that show, pay attention to, especially after the first season when they got a different cinematographer. Pay attention to how they actually shot it, and the way each scene is framed, and it's beautiful, and it works with the story, just as the script and the acting do. So I know that's a vague, but it's a good question that you asked. It's just really hard to answer.
On behalf of the Lasell College Communications Department, let's lend a hearty
if anybody has any questions that they want to email me, I'm easy to find, okay?